Hello, everyone. In today's program, I've got a really special guest for you. My guest name is Dean Fox. Dean Fox, he's a leading expert in mindset, renowned coach, entrepreneur, and what I especially like about Dean is Dean's life story. So, Dean, welcome. How are you?
I'm very good, Shaquille. Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Right, Dean, rather than me going into details, I loved your story and thank you very much for being here. Hopefully we can bring a lot of value to our discussion, and there's so many people like us, entrepreneurs, who want to, get on with life, who have mission and vision in life, but sometimes they get stuck. We were there as well. So what we would do, if I will let you explain who you are and what you do currently.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, as I said, for inviting me today. And my background, a bit like you were saying, I started, as most people, doing maybe the corporate world. So my background's an engineer to start with. And during my time as an engineer, I was always looking for the next thing. I was on this treadmill of what I call the when then, this finish line mentality of when I get this, then I'll be successful, or when I get this, then I'll know I'll be happy. And so I was always looking for the next thing. So having been in the corporate world, I rose from an apprentice through to an engineering manager, and then I didn't really have anywhere to go in that environment. I started to look for the next steps. Where else could I go? And so I sidestepped. I moved from engineering into commercial, so into sales and business development and growth. And again, started at the bottom as a sales executive and worked my way up through account manager to national sales manager for a blue chip company in the UK. But I still didn't feel like that was the right thing for me. I still didn't feel fulfilled. I still didn't have the excitement that I wanted. And so when an opportunity arose for me to leave that company, through a complete restructure, so there was potential for redundancies and things like that, I took the step then in the early 2000s to do that, and I left and I set up my own business, and I started in the property, real estate, the property development and investment business. I set up in partnership with my wife, and we had a really good period of years as the business grew and we started to get more involved in different types of projects. And then obviously we came across 2008, which was the last time something like what's happening in the world now in terms of uncertainty and a global situation happened. And the difficulty then was obviously that if you were in the game that we were in terms of property investment and development, that it was almost like somebody turned a tap off. There was all sorts of things going on. Our access to finance had changed. The banks were pulling back on all the credit facilities that we had, and it was a really, really difficult time. And over about maybe a 6 to 10 month period in 2008 and early 2009, all of that completely changed. Our business was, like I said, it was almost like we closed the doors one evening, and when we opened them the next day, there was no business there. And that put a lot of pressure on us financially, but we had done well in the previous period of time, and so we thought that we would be able to survive through that period, that we'd just kind of sit tight, rein ourselves in a little bit, and we would just use that period of time to settle down and wait until things passed. We assumed it wasn't going to be that long. And then what happened, unfortunately, was in 2010, my wife and I were involved in a really bad road traffic accident, a car accident.
Oh, wow.
And we were unable to work for the best part of 12 months. So almost, it happened in March, and the first time we could really consider doing anything was kind of November, December time of that year. And apart from the kind of the physical recovery, if you like, the physical injuries and the difficulty of just being able to do the things that we were used to doing, I think for me the real difficulty was that I was struggling psychologically. I was struggling mentally, not being able to kind of go out and do the things that I wanted to be able to do. I knew that another 12 months out after the period we'd already had was eating into our finances every single month, and I couldn't really see a situation out, and I found myself in a period where things just kind of spiraled out of control. They just seemed to get worse and worse and worse, both from a financial point of view, but more importantly for me, I think from a psychological point of view. I was feeling more and more depressed. I was struggling. The place I was in was getting darker and darker, and I was looking to really try and find a way out, and I couldn't really see one. And I got to a point by the end of 2010, kind of early weeks of December, and I think what really triggered that really dark time then was we were approaching kind of Christmas. We'd already had 2 tough times, 2 tough Christmases. I had a young family, and facing a third one, but with the potential of having even less, and not being able to even provide for them, and not even being able to kind of just say, right, okay, well, things are not working out the way they are, I'm just going to go and get a job, I'll go back into sales. Not being able to do that physically meant that the psychological effects of that were deepening. I was getting darker and darker, and it led me to a point where, and I talk about this now, I probably couldn't a few years ago, but it led me to a point where in the second week in December, I got up one morning. It was one of those kind of crisp winter mornings when it was a bit bright outside, but it was cold in the morning, and I said to my wife that I was going out for a walk. I needed to get some fresh air. But the truth was that I wasn't really going for a walk. I had no intention of going home. I'd gone to some woods near where I lived, and like I said, I wasn't intending going home. I was looking for a way to end my life. And I'd like to say that, what happened at that time was I had this huge kind of light bulb moment, or this epiphany, and everything changed for me. It wasn't really like that, but what did happen was I clearly remember the events that led up to it. I went to a clearing in the woodland, and there's a small bench there, and I sat there, and 2 things happened. One, I became hugely angry with everything. So myself, the world, everything that was going on, and that anger kind of, it welled up in me. It got stronger and stronger and stronger, and it was what was driving me to make this decision. The interesting thing was that when I made the decision, when I actually sat there and said, okay, I am not going to go back, I am going to take my own life, there was almost this, I don't know, like a sense of peace, like a sense of calm that came over me. And it was at that point that I started to think about, okay, well, but all the things I've gone through, I could have died in a car accident. Why didn't I? Why am I still here? What's it all about? What's the purpose? What's the meaning for me doing this? And asking those questions, there seemed to be a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel, and it was enough just for me to not take action that day and to return home. And again, I'd like to say that what happened was when I returned home, everything changed, and my life dramatically improved over the next few weeks, days, or months. But it didn't. It took a fair amount of time. But one thing I really did was I was looking for inspiration, and I'd come back home. I'd gone into the office that we had in the house, and I'd taken a book from the bookshelf, which one of my sons had bought me when we'd been on holiday.
So if you don't mind me asking, so what were you doing? You said office in the home. So what were you doing at the time?
Yes, I was still. That was what was left of our property business.
Right.
So we lost the company essentially, but we had a few properties that we were managing ourselves at that time. And so I'd gone into the office, the space that we used to do that, and took this book from the bookshelf. And the book was called Think and Grow Rich, and it had the most profound effect. I'd read that book before, but I'd never really seen some of the things that were in it that I saw when I read it at that time. And it really started to open my eyes to, the fact that I had to take some level of responsibility there were things that happened in my life that were not my fault, but I still could take responsibility for my part in it, my actions, how I responded to the things that happened around me. And that started me on a journey of making some very, very important decisions, but also looking at who I really was. If I was going to make changes and I was ever going to recover from this, I had to understand, how I ended up where I was and how I could get back to where I needed to be. And so everything I did from that point on over the last 10 years, has been invested in myself in terms of personal development, personal growth, studying with some of the best mentors and coaches I could find around the world, to help me understand as much as I could about myself. And the first major decision I had to make with real clarity was looking at the situation I was in, was from a financial perspective. I could see no way forward other than to end up bankrupt, which is what happened. And that meant we lost everything else, essentially, apart from our home. The only thing we managed to keep was our home. And that was more by luck than good judgment. It was just that during the property times, because we had so many other things on, we put the property, when we built our own home, I put the mortgage in my wife's name.
Right.
And it was just for ease. It was, at the time, it wasn't for any plan. And that was the only reason we managed to keep that. And so I was starting from scratch with essentially nothing.
So when you say you're back to zero, or probably even in minus, I would say. So our topic today, I'm really grateful you've chosen a really amazing topic, which is release the mental handbrake. So
Yes.
you not only probably had a mental handbrake just prior to that, but probably you were going in reverse, if I'm correct.
Yes, I was, yeah.
So
You're
would you like to
absolutely right.
explain what exactly you mean by release the mental handbrake? And then comparing that with your own life, your own experiences, how one can do that.
Yeah, sure. So if you look at, the way that I talk about releasing the mental handbrake is that most people have experienced times in their life where they know what they would like to achieve. They've got ambitions and goals and dreams. They feel like they're capable of achieving that, but something seems to be stopping them. Something seems to be holding them back in some way, shape or form.
Yeah.
They don't take the actions that they need to take, and that was definitely me at that particular point in time.
Or they don't know what action to take. Some are completely lost. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, I started my journey, if you like, at those times from exactly that perspective, that I wasn't sure where to start. I wasn't sure who I was anymore or what I was supposed to do. And even if I did, I wasn't sure that I could actually do anything. I just felt completely stuck. And I liken it to this idea that, it's like sitting in the car. It doesn't matter how good the car is. It doesn't matter how big the engine is. But if you've got the handbrake on, it's likely not to go anywhere. And if it does, it'll go really slowly. And that's where that idea came from, this concept of kind of having this mental handbrake. And so in order for me to take action, I needed to release that. I needed to let go of the things that were holding me back. And so all of the people that I worked with around that time, it was focused on mindset, simply because one of the things that I really understood from my reading of Think and Grow Rich and subsequent books after that, things like The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles and a few other people, what really, really resonated me was that it didn't matter how good my skills were going to be. Yes, I would need some skills over that time, but it didn't matter how good they were. If I didn't have the right approach, the right mental attitude and mindset, I wasn't going to put those skills into action. I wasn't going to use them. So I decided that, okay, the best thing for me, I think, would be to understand exactly how this works. How does the mind stop us doing the things that we either want to do or we know we should do sometimes, but still don't? And why was I procrastinating over things that I perhaps could have taken action on before? And so that's what I sought out. I sought out everything I could find, whether it was books, whether it was audios, whether it was events, whether it was coaches or mentors, anybody or anything that was relevant to that aspect. I started to study or get involved in, and that meant that every time we had the opportunity through from financial perspective, as things started to develop for us, then I invested that in the right coaches, the right mentors, and the right materials to help me develop the right mindset. And over that last decade, that's exactly what it's allowed me to do, which is to release my mental handbrake to allow me to take action and do things that I probably would love to have done in the past, but never really was afraid to do. Whether it was fear of failure, whether it was fear of rejection, or other beliefs that I held about myself that maybe I wasn't quite good enough. Having got rid of those, having released that mental handbrake, allowed me to go on and make decisions for myself that would completely transform my life and my family's life.
Yeah, and I think the mindset, it's everyone underestimates, and everyone thinks there's no opportunity in the world, and circumstances and government, and now coronavirus, obviously. Everyone thinks that they need a technique, or they need a business model, or they need a business idea which can, be mega successful. But no one realizes probably 95% of the battle is actually mindset. Because once the mindset, and your story reminds me of, one of the thought leader and the, biggest inventor, and I'm personally really inspired by Buckminster Fuller. I don't know if you read story. I mean, he was at a similar stage where he was going to take his life, and he was on a bridge going to jump into a river, and suddenly something happened. And he thought, if I'm at this stage where I'm taking my own life, the most precious thing to me, why not live a different kind of life where I'm completely free and see how much change a single person can bring in the world. And from that point onwards, he lived in a way, and we all know how much difference he's made in the world. And your story, similar, probably not your change in your life or the mindset change didn't happen right in 1 second. It happened gradually, but it's similar. But what I'm trying to say here is mindset is, I always tell my students and people I know and people I coach, that mindset is, once you sort that out, there's only 5% left to implement things, and you are going to be successful. So.
Absolutely, and that, you hit the nail on the head earlier when you said that people are looking, during times of difficulty, and we are in times of difficulty in terms of unprecedented times right now. That I believe that every time, every situation is either an obstacle or an opportunity, and the decision about whether it's an obstacle or an opportunity is down to the individual. You look back at the last recession during 2008, and I use this personally, that was the time that my business collapsed, and we had a 2 or 3 year period where we really struggled around financially and everything else. But you look at that period of time, and there are now billion-dollar brands that were launched during that recession. Uber and things like that, Slack, software brands and other brands that were launched that are now billion-dollar companies were launched during that period of time. So whether it's an obstacle or an opportunity is based entirely on the mindset of the individual. And right now, we have exactly the same situation, unprecedented times, where some people will view this time as an obstacle and others will see it as a huge, huge opportunity. For me personally, one of my missions right now is to help as many people as I possibly can understand that who they really are is good enough to be whatever it is that they want to be. And there are so many opportunities right now that people should never be in a position where they are living a life that they're either not in control of or they don't want to be a part of. And for me, with that vision and that aim in mind, there's never been a better opportunity right now because, we've got such good technology like this, we can reach out to more people. And at the minute, there are more people out there who are in a position where they are looking to receive some information. So again, whether it's an obstacle or an opportunity is based entirely on the mindset of the individual looking at the situation.
Right. Okay. So going back to your story, so you were at this stage where you almost lost everything you had, but you are now, you have a different kind of mindset. You understand things and you want to take action. So what did you did? And if you can explain that step by step. So if, let's say, people watching this, if they are in similar state where they are just starting off, so what steps you followed which allowed you to have the success you have right now?
Yeah, and so I think there's some key things. The first one is, I alluded to it earlier, which is that everything that I could get my hands on which related to the development of an entrepreneurial mindset or a positive mindset, I read. And so over a period of time, there's probably 3 or 4 things that I've done which have significantly helped me. And every time I work with somebody, whether I'm coaching or whatever, I get them to do the same steps. So the first one is that build a routine, something that particularly early morning, because it sets the day up the right way. So build a routine. So my routine normally consists of I have some morning meditation. And it's not for anything other than it gives me, even if it's just 10 minutes, it gives me 10 minutes of space from anything else to allow me just to set myself and focus on what it is that I want out of that day. So what my plan is for the day, what I'm looking to achieve, and I try and set one specific intention, one thing that day that I want to try and achieve above everything else in my day. I then have, while I'm getting dressed or I'm in the shower, I have a playlist. So, I play a set playlist of music that gets me in the right frame of mind. It helps to develop and get me in the right frame of mind. And then the first thing that I do after that is I'll read. So for some people, reading's not their thing. It might be audio, but it doesn't really matter. It's either way. I prefer to read a physical book. And I'll read, 10 or 15 pages from one of the books. And sometimes it's a book that I'm actually reading, so I'll be reading it in order. Sometimes, if I'm not, I'll just go straight to the bookshelf, take a book, open it and read 10 or 15 pages from it. And you'll be amazed at the number of times I take a book from the shelf, I read just 10 or 15 pages from anywhere in it, I'll just open it and read it. And you'll be amazed at the number of times that perhaps an answer or a suggestion or something comes out of that 10 or 15 minutes, which is really helpful to something I've perhaps been thinking about or trying to understand or develop over maybe the day before or the couple of days before. So the answer seems to appear, if you like. And then I have breakfast, and then not on every day, but on some of the days I'll also have some exercise in there. I'll try and do 30 minutes of exercise. And so having that as my first step helps me to create, to build the day the way that I want it to go. So that's one of the things that over the time I've been doing this, I've developed is to get that routine, that morning routine right, so that it sets me up for the day ahead. That's the first thing. The second thing that I always do, and I talk about with all my students as well, is that although I might have a long list of things to do, so we're as entrepreneurs and business owners, we usually have big to-do lists, and there's nothing better on a to-do list than ticking things off as you've done them. But there's a psychological effect of adding things to a to-do list or looking at a long to-do list at the beginning of a day and thinking, okay, what am I going to do from this to-do list? So I read a book once called Eat That Frog. I don't know if you've come across that one, Shaquille, by Brian Tracy. Yeah. So I use it. I use that strategy, but I blended it a little bit with something I heard from somebody else, which is what I do is out of my to-do list, I'll take only 3 things to start with, and I'll write those 3 things on a post-it note, and I'll tackle them in the order of eat that frog. So the one I think is the most difficult, or the one I'm less keen to do, if you like, I do that one first. But I don't do anything else off the other to-do list until I've completed all those 3 tasks, and then I scrumple the post-it note up, throw it away, and write the next 3 on. So even if I've got 20 tasks to do that day, I only do them in 3s. And it really helps me to focus on what I'm doing at that particular point in time. So that was the second thing that's really advantageous. The third thing was to really understand how the mind works. So the difference between the conscious and the subconscious mind, and how my beliefs that I had, those things about whether I was good enough and my fear of perhaps failure or rejection, was to really understand how they came about. Where did they come from? How do these beliefs be instilled in us? And understanding that, the next step after that was to then eliminate them completely, to work out, okay, where did they come from, and how does that work, and how can I remove them so that they don't affect me in the future, and then how can I replace them with beliefs that do serve me, was a next key thing. And that's one of the things that I really focus on now in helping people, is understanding what their number one or their primary limiting belief is, and helping them to go through some steps to completely eliminate that permanently forever, so that they can move forward and take action. So that was the next step. And then the final bit was, on the basis of those key things, was to find and work with the right people that would allow me to get where I wanted to be. Something that I've learned over my time in business, and I'm sure you'll be the same, Shaquille, is that, you know, we can't be an expert at everything. And not only that, I don't want to be an expert in everything. I want to be an expert in what I'm really good at, and everything else I've worked with somebody else. So I'll either outsource it, or I'll find a partner to do it, and work with them, so that we can I can focus on the things that I'm
okay.
really
If I can summarize the steps, so your daily routine, what you mentioned is, the first thing is you do meditation and read something, and you're doing this, you probably trying to achieve the optimum level of energy, positive energy. Or like I do a similar routine, I do meditate, but I don't get up until I've got into a mind frame of frame of mind where I'm unstoppable. When I'm like that, then I'll get up and then do anything. And then next thing you do is your to-do list, what's most important, and then order it in a specific manner. The next step, you keep an eye on your subconscious mind, and what are your fears, what are inner belief systems which might be holding you back. And the next thing is find right people, right partnerships, right joint ventures, and not try to do everything. And probably this is one of the problem, like any entrepreneur, when they start their journey, they are always trying to do every single thing themselves. I always say, I'm only good at, if let's say there's 100 tasks, business tasks or areas, I'm only probably good at 5% of them, but I do them better than anyone else. Right? But then 80% or 95% or whatever percentage it is, I'm not good at. I always, give it to people who are good at, and that's the formula for the success. So I completely agree. Morning routine is really important. And I don't know if you read Dr. Joe Dispenza, You Are the Placebo. He talks about the exact same things, like how your subconscious mind develops early on when you're born and in your childhood. And then we end up believing that that's who we are, our beliefs, our personality, our fears, our habits. But it's just programming in your brain, and you have the power to change it anytime. And once you understand how to do it, you become unstoppable. and that's exactly what you're teaching.
Absolutely.
Now, tell me, what are the people who come to you, entrepreneurs and coaches, etc.? How do you help them to grow their business, and what is your approach?
Okay, so the key steps for me, I mean, we've got a range of programs that we work with people, but the focus for me is that I take them through this journey that I went through, essentially, So it's a case of, okay, let's start by understanding the basics of mindset, the basics of how it works, and then let's not spend 10 years like I did, trying to eliminate all the things that are affecting us. So I, over that time, along with working alongside and listening and learning from people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, Tony Robbins, and a number of other, Bob Proctor, and a number of other mentors around the country, I took lots of things that I'd learned, and I developed a very, very simple system that I use for helping people eliminate limiting beliefs permanently. And we do that really, really quickly. I help them identify, because one of the things that I really struggled with was that I knew there was something holding me back, but I wasn't entirely sure what it was. And so I find that when I'm working with people, that's often the same. So they will come to me with what I would call a pattern of behavior. So they'll say something like, I've got a real fear of public speaking, or I seem to be procrastinating all the time, or I want to do this in my business, but I'm struggling to take the action. And from the behavior pattern, we'll then work with them to understand what things that they have in their self-image that they believe about themselves. And then we'll take them through a very simple process that allows us to eliminate that, which means they no longer believe that. And as you said, that makes them become unstoppable, essentially, which means that very quickly they can start taking the actions that they need in their business to start to see the results. And so all of our focus is around that. Like I said, I work with other people who are experts in other parts of business. I've got really good contacts around the IT side of business and things like that, and I can signpost clients to them when they get to that stage, or if somebody comes to me and says, I'm looking for some help with this, then I can signpost them to the relevant expert. But my expertise is in taking them from where they are to where they want to be in the shortest possible time, based on developing the right mindset, so that they can take that action with zero resistance in the shortest possible time.
So really taking the handbrake off and setting them up on a successful journey is your expertise. And as you mentioned, so you were doing well, you were in a corporate job, and then you started your own businesses, everything went down then from there on, and last recession you lost everything, and you were at a stage where you were considering taking your own life. And then today you are a successful entrepreneur and speaker. And what's next in life?
So I alluded to it earlier. My passion now is that I don't want anybody to have to go through what I went through, and certainly not to take 10 years to get to the stage that I got to. So I really want to inspire as many people as I can that anything is possible for them. That's the first thing. The second thing is that who they are is already good enough to do that. So long as they really understand that, and they can get rid of some of the things that from a mindset point of view is holding them back. And the final thing is that there is hope. So anybody is experiencing the dark times, like I alluded to, that I went through, I have utmost compassion and empathy for anybody who's at that stage, but I also want those people to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is a way forward, and there are people that can help them with that. They just need to reach out and find those people. So that's kind of what I'm all about. My vision for that, in terms of my own business and my own passion, is to be doing that more often. I want to help as many people as we can, inspire millions of people to be able to go out and take the action that they want to be. I have this saying that I stole from Earl Nightingale, where he talks about success being the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So I really want people to be successful, but based on that definition. So not just around money, not just around material things, but I want them to have success based on a worthy ideal. So the thing that they're really passionate about, the thing that they would really love to do but are probably afraid to take the steps, I want to inspire them to take those steps, because my passion for helping people and inspiring them I'm hoping that has a ripple effect. And the more people that I can impact personally, they're going to impact other people with the same strategies and the same mindset, and then we can have a bigger impact across the world globally.
I just wanted at the end, I wanted to ask you: is it like online programs you do, or is it more one-on-one coaching, or what are the different?
Yeah, so we have a range. We've got some online programs that people can get access to. Some of my one-to-one is delivered online, so we'll work through Zoom and things like that, because I work across the world. So and we also have some face-to-face. So we run some mastermind groups, and we run some live events as well, and workshops. So there's a mix in there depending on what the needs of the individual are, and where they are on their journey, and what they're looking to achieve.
Okay,
in
and
whatever time frame.
Is there a website?
So we have a range of, yeah, absolutely. So people can get me at deanafox.com.
Okay. And
or they can reach out to me on social media, on Facebook and Instagram. I'm on @DeanFox.
Right, no worries. And I'll try and I'll put all the links, in, if you look at the post, I will put all the links, links there where people can come to you if they're looking for help. And I love it. You're an inspiration. I personally feel the life you've been through, and then I think so many people can learn from it, and so many people get inspired. And I'll definitely, I would like to do probably another session, but more detail on one of the topics, probably how to, overcome fear of taking the next step, or more in depth, related to mindset, and probably do another session. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your time, and please stay connected. And I'm sure probably we'll be in touch, and we'll be doing some joint ventures together as well.
Yeah, well, it's been a real pleasure, and thank you for the invitation. Like I said, it all contributes to my bigger mission of inspiring as many people as I can. So if somebody gets some value from us having a conversation, then then that's contributed towards my goals as well. So I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Keep safe. Coronavirus thing is crazy right now, but yeah, keep developing. And yeah, thank you very much. You take care. See you soon.